Hi folks, I'm Pastor Steve Herring, Stated Supply Pastor at the Pine Tops Presbyterian Church, Cobb Memorial Presbyterian Church, and the Nahala Presbyterian Church. This is part 3 of a 4-part series on the patterns, ways of perceiving and looking at the various situations that we encounter in our lives. Now, the first pattern is to understand the nature of our world, where everything changes, and the nature of our world where everything flows, and the need that we have to find an unchanging center within our own being from which to witness the changes in the world. That unchanging center is the Word of Jesus, the Logos, the Word of creation, the meaning of everything that is at the center of our being, the soul that we possess by the gift of God. Jesus says in Luke 21:19, Jesus says, by your patient endurance you will gain your soul. So we're really about gaining our soul in the midst of continuous, dynamic, chaotic change. Continuous, dynamic, chaotic change. Storms come, storms go. Wars come, wars go. Politicians come, politicians go. So social change comes, social change goes, another social change takes its place. Every ending is a new beginning. Every beginning marks the end of something. Now, the next part we're going to look at regarding the patterns is the patterns that are inside us. You see, your body, my body, our bodies are living mechanisms, basically functioning just like a machine, circulatory system, respiratory system, nervous system, all the systems that go together to make these bodies function. These bodies exist within the world, and they have their own dynamic, chaotic systems which flow and change to make us what we are. We are who and what we are in a physical sense. Now keep in mind, I'm talking physically. I'm talking about this physical body. We are who and what we are by virtue of a genetic code. Your mother and your father each contributed to you 50% of the DNA that provides the pattern by which your body continuously recreates itself. The DNA is nothing but a chemical code that tells your body how to make itself, how to continuously remake itself. You see, the body is constantly changing, and it's constantly letting go of cells and then making new ones, right? So if I cut my finger, which I seem to be able to do on a fairly regular basis, if I cut my finger, that cut doesn't just stay there as a cut, it heals. It heals because the body remakes itself. It makes itself constantly, changing out parts of itself and replacing those parts of itself. And that all happens according to a genomic code. Now, we have learned regarding the genomic or genetic, and I don't know enough about genetics to use those two words precisely enough, but I kind of interchange the two words. But we can study the way, for instance, twins who are separated at birth. wonderful literature about that, where people have actually tracked down twins, identical twins, who were separated at birth and raised in completely different places without any interaction with each other at all. And when they study these twins separated at birth, they find that their lives follow amazingly similar patterns. What does that mean? In other words, and you can read the literature on twins separated at birth, and you can see that, wow, they really do live incredibly similar lives in totally different places. And what that tells us is that many aspects of our lives are determined by our genomic code. Things like our preferences, things that what we prefer, what we like, our likes and our dislikes, that guide the decisions that we make, and those decisions then shape the world in which we live. So, in other words, we are profoundly affected by the genomic code that makes up our DNA inside ourselves. It's really amazing. It's absolutely amazing stuff. So it's important to understand, because in the course of making decisions as we live our lives, we need to make these decisions in an informed fashion, being aware of the limitations we possess and being aware of the strengths that we possess. And so, we're all good at some things, right? We all have and possess certain skills. And so you can actually take a good look at yourself, and you can see that you actually possess certain incredible strengths, things you can do. And you also possess certain weaknesses, things you cannot do. And your abilities and your disabilities, your strengths and your weaknesses, your gifts and your deficiencies, they are provided through the genomic code that comes from your parents and your grandparents and your family. It just simply got handed to you when you were conceived, because you got 50% of your father's DNA and 50% of your mother's DNA. So 50% of his program and 50% of her program went into your body and gave you that mixture of strengths and weaknesses. Now, understanding your strengths and weaknesses helps you stay away from doing things that you're going to fail at, and helps guide you to do things where you will meet with success. Helps you understand environments where you will be stressed and environments where you will just thrive. So you see, happiness, success, is derivative of just understanding that there are certain things we can do and certain things we cannot do. And that is just a way of helping us to have less stress and to use the gifts that God has given us. That we would understand the natural abilities that God has endowed us with, and utilize those abilities in a positive way. That's the way we gain a certain amount of strength. And so just let me backtrack a little bit and show you how this fits into the whole picture of the 4 visions of the good life. That's the essay that this whole thing is drawn from. Now, the world brings you all of these dynamic chaotic systems that occur. The weather, the social trends, the economy, all of it. It all goes according to cycles that are governed by dynamic chaotic patterns. We can see that in any discipline that we choose to study. In economics, you can see it. In sociology, you can see it. In history, you can see it. In biology, you can see it. The various patterns that occur. Recognize these patterns and understand that this will come and this will go, so that you are not carried away or swept away by the fortunes and misfortunes of earthly existence. Then you see that the same thing occurs inside yourself. On a micro scale, the patterns of dynamic chaos helps you deal with your health and with the coming and going patterns of illness and upset and the things that can occur in your body to make your body the way it is. So once again, having that simple perspective guides you. Now, the third section and the fourth section that we're going to look at in the last installment of this four-part series would have to do with the decisions we make and the faith we possess as we go through all these changes. So I want to encourage you to hang on, because we've covered these two dynamic, chaotic patterns that we live in, the whole world out there and the world in here in our physical bodies. Next, we're going to pick up with decisions. That'll be in part 4. So that concludes part 3 of this 4-part series.